All right, welcome to Bet the Edge. I'm Jay Croucher here with Drew Dinsick. Today we're going to talk a little basketball, talk the Christmas Day games, revisit the association after a long time of talking Purdy ball. We'll talk all through these games. Let's start with Bucks at Knicks, Drew. As we are recording, the spread is Bucks -5. Total is 224.5. Strange season for both of these teams. Mitchell Robinson been ruled out for the year, has probably been the Knicks' second best player this season when healthy. And then the Bucks, their offense has turned supernova, but they cannot guard anything. What's your breakdown of this one?
Yeah, I would still put IQ second most important, Nick, after Brunson.
Okay.
But Mitchell Robinson was right there. He was playing a great ball. Really, really a bummer to see him go down. And yes, I think this is lined with some expectation that Milwaukee's going to be able to find a way to get it done, but not necessarily a lot of high confidence of those in the market that they're going to win by margin. Some of that is, I would say, attributable to the fact that the Knicks have a decent rest advantage heading into this game. Certainly the fact that it's an early tip-off in the Garden, the likelihood of the Knicks being more familiar with the kind of setting and the preparation that needs to be done to come out and play a solid game that early with that early tip-off is, I would tilt the advantage Knicks over Bucks. And so basically you can kind of get where I'm coming from, which is I'm just looking for any angle here to bet the home team Knicks. I don't know if you remember, but we have a recent example of Knicks and Bucks in a high leverage game. It was the quarterfinals of the in-season tournament, and that was competitive for a half, and then the Bucks absolutely ran away in the second half, and the Knicks had no answers. Although I think this is now a little bit different situation, being in New York, being early, and being a little bit of a fatigue advantage in favor of the Knicks. So not my favorite play of the entire suite of games on the card, but I think with this drifting into the 4.5-5 point range, this is Knicks or pass.
Yep, no, that's fair. The Bucks so far have played, by some measures, the easiest strength of schedule in the NBA, and they still only have the 19th best defense. There's just no hope on the perimeter. Like, there's just no one who can stay in front of anyone. And I think that the biggest takeaway for me from the Bucks season so far is just how much, not so much that they just miss Drew Holiday, but how dependent Giannis and Brook are defensively on having a Drew Holiday type guy in front of them who can navigate screens, who can push guys in the right direction. And I'm not sure that really is going to get cured. The team is way too dependent on my namesake, my twin brother, Jay Crowder, whose absence has seemingly contributed to taking their defense. But there's nothing that is ultra inspiring about the Bucks right now, with the caveat that Giannis and Lillard can win any series if they turn it on as much as they can. But yeah, for this game, I have no particular lean. I'd be with you. I'd be leaning Knicks if forced. I don't think there's any way to really bet these teams at the moment in futures markets. The market has kind of cottoned on to the fact that Emmanuel Quickley, our departed father, Emmanuel Quickley, he's just up against it in terms of getting minutes. He's playing 22 minutes this month as we're recording, and as someone who's very familiar with Quickley's work, like if he's not making shots, then Tibbs doesn't close with him. And maybe that changes a little bit now that Mitchell Robinson is just like one less guy in the rotation, but you'd expect that they would more skew big or skew Josh Hart instead of Quickley there. So don't like him for sixth man of the year. Giannis for MVP was fascinating to me for a while, but I think Embiid has just ratcheted up that to a place where I'm not sure Giannis. I mean, he can get there. I still think he should be the third favorite in that market, but that seems like it's going to be Embiid or Jokic again for the fourth year straight, and we'll get to that in a sec. But do either of those guys or anyone else appeal to you in any of these markets?
I'm still bullish IQ for sixth man of the year. I would keep a very close, eye on that. Right now, he is still in most of the most effective five-man combinations that the Knicks are playing. And I think that matters. You're right. He needs to start making shots to get in that closing group, but I still have hope that is an option. Kind of one other interesting wrinkle about this game that I wanted your take on: wild clash of pace here.
Yeah.
The Bucks are out there with an estimated about 102 possessions per 48 minutes, which is fourth fastest in the NBA. Meanwhile, the Knicks are at 96.9, which is second slowest in the NBA. Decent chance that with the early start and a little bit of kind of out of the norm kind of setting, that this plays to a first half under. I know that's a very common and fun and there's been a lot of ink spilled over that particular angle, but first half under in these early games on Christmas Day, especially that you have now the second slowest team in the league and the Knicks involved, to me would be a fun play.
Yep. No, I like it. First game ended up, 146, 122 between these two teams. So perhaps there'll be a correction there. On your point on quickly, I haven't so much thought about who I think should win that award as much as who I think will win it, which is obviously much more relevant for the market. I think, without having really done the deep dive, I think I'd probably vote quickly at the moment. I think he's the best guy coming off the bench again. But I'm not sure between the Knicks. I mean, losing Robinson just hurts their ceiling so much as a team in terms of being able to get a top 3 seed. So I think you're probably looking at a team that maxes out, as a 4 seed with quickly playing 24 minutes a game, perhaps. And if he's not having an outlier shooting season, I think he's going to be up against it, particularly because it's a deeper class of 6 men this season, though there is no runaway at the moment. All right, Warriors at Nuggets. Nuggets 5-point favorites. This is the 2:30 p.m. Eastern game. Total is 230 and a half. Draymond Green obviously will not be playing in this game. This line struck me as a little bit light. What do you make of this one?
Yeah, it's a little bit light.
Why is it only 5?
I'm not. I mean, there seems seemingly bottomless support for the Warriors at any price, and that it's a very flawed team. The Chris Paul minutes this year, and he's had to have a lot of them because you've gotten long stretches here without Draymond Green, and you've had really kind of a need for another playmaker and distributor on the floor, but like his style of play and his strengths and weaknesses clash so aggressively with the guys they have him out there with so much of the time that it doesn't really feel like I have any kind of clear picture of who the Warriors really are. And Draymond Green being unavailable for this game causes huge defensive limitations for the various ways that they can try to roll out and defend a truly dynamic offense. Nikola Jokic has, in my opinion at least, kind of backed up an amazing campaign from last season with an incredible start to this year. He's still, to me at least, the most important offensive player in basketball, and probably still the best player in basketball, even though pretty clearly to this point in the season, Embiid is outperforming him. I think at full strength, the starting 5 for the Denver Nuggets is kind of an unstoppable and perfect unit. Everybody knows and has their roles and responsibilities developed so well with that crew, and the chemistry is so strong. And for what it's worth, there hasn't been a ton of miles on Jamal Murray so far this season. So I think there is plenty of scope for the Nuggets to kind of pick up their current net rating, which is not especially impressive at 7th overall with just a +5. And mostly I think the outstanding ability to kind of defend the perimeter, combine that with unstoppable offense, makes them the clear bet in this spot. Not exactly sure what Golden State can do to counter things. I usually like to try to find a way in to all of these games on Christmas, looking for a reason to bet the dog. But you have a relatively well-rested Denver team, combined, equal fatigue between these two squads. So no advantage one way or the other, and a clear better starting and closing 5, in my opinion, with the Nuggets. So they should win. They should cover. I'll probably play some Nuggets first quarter, which is usually, in my opinion, a little bit of a discounted way to get involved with some Nuggets, because rather than giving you a fair price based on the starting 5 and the advantage, they give you just kind of the full game total cut into 4. So that's a fun way to play that one if you don't want to take on a full game -5.
It is baffling the market is not corrected around that this was surely the grade in terms of just splits. This is the biggest one ever in terms of first quarter markets, given the drop-off to the non-Jokic minutes, particularly when Murray was out. I don't understand how that still exists. It's probably mitigated a little bit in this one because of Steph on the other side and a drop off that is not, from memory, not as extreme as perhaps years past, but still, it's still 12 minutes of Stephen Curry. But that is certainly something to look for in Nuggets games. There's been a lot of consternation over the Golden State Warriors and why they've been so underwhelming. It's quite simple. They just don't have any good players anymore. Klay Thompson is now +1 EPM. He's still fine, but he's not anything resembling, the guy that he was pre-injuries certainly, and even in the title season recently. Draymond hasn't been the same guy when he's been out there. Andrew Wiggins is atrocious. He's just a massive negative to a basketball team at the moment. I don't know what happened to him. Obviously, he missed a huge chunk of the season last year because of personal reasons, but he just hasn't been the same guy at all. Chris Paul has been probably about what you would expect, but they're old, they're small, they're athletic guys like Kuminga and Wiggins just haven't given them what they need. Kuminga's fine, but he hasn't lived up to expectations. Then on the other side, in the Nuggets, and Jokic is now +350 for MVP after sitting his favorite for a long time, flipping to Embiid after Embiid now just scores 45 every night for fun. And I think the difference simply right now in this MVP race is one guy is really trying and the other guy isn't trying at all. Like Jokic has just completely taken the foot off the gas in December. He's averaging 22 points per game this month. And now that includes the ejection against Chicago. But even still, like the Dallas game, took 8 shots against Dallas. He scored 8 points. So he's just coasting at the moment. And if that's not going to change, then Embiid, I think, is just going to stroll to this thing if he stays healthy. I would also expect at some point Embiid is going to suffer a downturn, and he's also gotten injured in 100% of his seasons in the NBA, and Jokic is one of the most durable players in the league. So I don't think that Embiid is just going to absolutely stroll to it. I think that Jokic is going to have a surge at some point. I think +350 is still a little bit too big. But this Nuggets team does seem to be a little bit Golden State, that kind of 2018-19 phase where they're just kind of getting through it and gearing themselves up for the playoffs. But, what have you seen from Jokic so far? Do you think this is going to change, or do you think that, he has kind of settled into his role?
I think ultimately he'll ramp up to where there will be a time in the season where they're going to have to kick it into a higher gear, almost certainly. Right now, the Timberwolves aren't going anywhere. They're number 1 seed. The Thunder aren't going anywhere, number 2 seed. And I don't think the Nuggets really are relishing a potential road series in round 2 of the playoffs if they want to try to get a back-to-back title here. So,
how about my Clippers?
Clippers, they're coming too. There's really not a margin for them to kind of play a full season on their heels and try to be healthy for a playoff push. Like they need to start pressing a little bit here. It may not happen until January. A lot of these teams just try to stay healthy, try to find out who do you have in terms of role players, especially because the bench was such a problem for the Nuggets last year and so obvious, and it didn't hurt them in terms of standing. It didn't hurt them in terms of championship, obviously. But I think a lot of the early part of the season has been a specific intention to try to get a sense of who do you have on that roster that can contribute at all. And I would expect that there's a little bit more emphasis on playing better basketball for them in January and February. And if it doesn't happen then the fire alarm is going to force their hand in March, April. So we'll see if that ends up manifesting. But I would still say that at anything better than 2-1, Jokic is the bet for MVP. And I'm going to participate in it if it comes around. I'm happy to. The big angle against Jokic last year was that he did nothing in the playoffs. Yeah. And what do you think the angle they're going to use to try to split hairs between Embiid and Jokic this year? It's going to be the shoe on the other foot there. So, I don't think it's necessarily a fun argument to have, trying to decide between these all-time great centers who's more valuable, more important. But for me, it is Jokic, and for me, I think the fact that there is potentially an angle for for the talking heads to kind of put Embiid down makes it that much more likely it's just going to be Jokic.
Yeah. Look, last year it wasn't a fair fight for Jokic at all, and this year it's not going to be a fair fight for Embiid at all. But the issue is it has to be a fight, and right now it's not.
Yeah,
Like
right,
Embiid
right,
is plus
right.
10.9 EPM, and Jokic is plus 7.5. Like right now, Embiid is the MVP to me, and it's not even a discussion. It's 100-0. But presumably that will ultimately
Yeah,
turn a little
yeah.
bit. And I agree. Like every year we talk about, is this the year for Tatum? Is this the year for Luka? Like, no, it's just going to be Jokic, Embiid, or Giannis every year until something vastly changes, because these three guys just have a ceiling that no one else has because they're just bigger than everyone else.
Yeah.
And that seems to matter. So, yeah, I think particularly Jokic and Embiid, I think their prices are still too big.
On real quick on this game before we move off, is this the year that Steph Curry hits the the age wall? His Darko trend is bad. It looks bad. And your points about Wiggins and Klay Thompson perfectly reflected in their numbers right now. Both are minus Darko players, which is absurd. I can't believe we're here, but yes, we are. And Steph Curry's 2023 till now has just been a freaking cliff like drop off. And I don't know if I have seen it personally watching games, but the advanced statistics all of a sudden are kind of turning on him in a way that reminiscent of other guards who kind of get to this age in their career and they're just not as effective. Do you have a read on if Father Time's catching up with Mr. Curry?
I mean, I think so. He's probably gone from a top 3-4 player in the NBA to a 9-10 player in the NBA, I would have thought. And to me, the most jarring thing, and why I jumped off the Warriors bandwagon very early and started backing their win total under, is like the updated one in season when it was 46.5, 47.5 under, is that so Curry, Draymond, and Clay have played almost 300 minutes together, which is, not the be all and end all, but I think a material sample. They have a net rating of -4 in that time, and there's no 3-point shooting luck involved in that. Both them and the opposition are shooting a bit over 36%. Steph and Draymond on, Clay off, 93 minutes, -11 net rating. It's not, and those these were obviously the units that were, and the combinations that were propelling them to championships. Like, you frequently Steph and Draymond on to be like plus 15, and now all of a sudden it is much more dire. So I think that, I don't think Curry can handle that load for a full regular season anymore if he's not getting help from those guys, and he's not getting help from those guys at the moment. So I think this is a 500 team this season, and particularly with Draymond out for a few weeks. All right, before we get to Celtics Lakers, unwrap an early Christmas present this Saturday with an NFL doubleheader. It all begins at 3 p.m. Eastern as we take you up to kickoff in Pittsburgh between the Bengals and Steelers on NBC and Peacock. Then at 7:30, it's a Peacock exclusive matchup as Josh Allen and the Bills look to stay in the postseason mix when they travel to Los Angeles to face the Stick Man, Easton Stick, and the Chargers. All right, Celtics 2-point favorites at the Lakers, total 237. Expecting that everyone on the Lakers is probably going to play, but we'll see. It's never a given. Jason Tatum dealing with an ankle at the moment. Not 100% sure what his status will be at the time we are recording. But what's your read on this one?
I think the Celtics are clearly the best team in the NBA. I know the net ratings and the advanced statistics will tell you that it's a close call. It's a conversation between them and the Sixers and Thunder and some of the other squads here at the top. But for me, at least, it's clearly the Celtics. And there are lots of weaknesses on this Lakers roster. The ability of LeBron to elevate the Lakers in their in-season tournament run was pretty cool. Like, I was an enjoyable watch. I was glad to see, that he still has that gear and that level. And I'm going to attribute a lot of the success LeBron has had so far this season to just, he looks healthy. Like, he has dealt with groin injury going on, it feels like 2 or 3 seasons. And the fact that that is not limiting him physically right now is pretty obvious. And it's cool to see him perform this well. That said, LeBron, Anthony Davis, some D'Angelo Russell, some Austin Reeves, I can't even put them in the same conversation as the Celtics right now. The Celtics have probably they could probably run out 2 or 3 different combinations of a closing 5 with at least 3 different players on those closing 5s. And I think I would rate either of those combinations better than what the Lakers can come up with, which is crazy. But they have so much flexibility in terms of how they want to try to defend. And honestly, the ceiling of what they can do offensively, I don't think we've even come close to seeing it. They still are pretty reliant on the 3-point shot. They're shooting fine. But the added dimension of Porzingis is still it looks like a little bit of a secret weapon that they're keeping under wraps to a degree. And I get why. I would. Like this Celtics team, I think, is for real. I don't know if they come out on Christmas and really try to make a statement like that. But I do think a fair price in this game for me is closer to Boston -4. So anything under 3, and I think this is Celtics or pass.
Yep, I'm with you there. I'm with you on the thought that the Celtics are the best team in the league by margin. I think the overarching skepticism about the Celtics is this, to me, very antiquated idea that you can't win a title when Jason Tatum is your best player. And I think that is just so fraught with peril as an angle from so many different reasons, where one, yes, it would be a historical outlier, Tatum being the best player on a title team, but that's an idea, and we are already living the reality of it being a historical outlier that they have got these 6 guys all together on the same team. Like, this talent level on one team is an outlier, and also just as like a thought experiment. Like, okay, Giannis is better than Tatum, but if you put 4 Malik Beasleys around Giannis, then they're clearly going to get absolutely stomped by this Celtics team, even though Giannis is better than Tatum. So it just makes no sense to me whatsoever. I think the Pistons in 2004, the Spurs teams, they dispelled the notion that, you have to have a top 3 player in the NBA to win. Talking about the later iteration of the Spurs when the best player on the team was Tony Parker. So I think that the Celtics, they are the clear best team by margin. This Lakers team, it is just, for 2 years now, it has been such a grind for them on offense, and I don't entirely get it why they aren't better, but it just seems like it's just half-court offense for them is such a slog. As a proud Austin Reeves 6th Man of the Year ticket holder, I hope they don't change the starting lineup, but it really feels like it would make more sense if Reeves was just starting over Cam Reddish or Taurean Prince. Makes no sense to me whatsoever, but I agree. These lines, when we're talking about them now, they're not super solid because there's not a ton of liquidity in them yet, and I'd be pretty stunned if these 2 teams are full strength if the Celtics are only 2-point favorites.
Yes, we agree. Future question for you. As someone who has a decent amount of skin in Anthony Davis for Defensive Player of the Year, do I need to be sweating? Because I'm watching these games and I'm seeing him be given all this consideration, and I'm like, yeah, he's good, he's important, but was he is he the 10th most important right now? I don't know. Am I in a little bit of trouble because of the brand name recognition here? And is he going to get real deal consideration for DPOY?
I would have him second favorite, but second favorite I don't think means a ton in the moment, because I think Gobert is so far out in front of everyone right now. Just the fact that, Minnesota's defensive rating is 107.5. Second is Philadelphia at 110 flat. There's been a little bit of buzz about Embiid lately. I think there are worlds that Embiid could certainly win, but right now they're 2.5 points behind Minnesota for defensive rating, and they've played a super easy schedule, and they're getting a crazy amount of shooting luck, and I don't think they really have the personnel to sustain that. So, look, I wouldn't be that worried about Davis. I priced this market up earlier today. I make Davis 12-1 fair. So, and I think you laid a shorter price than that, right?
Okay.
And also, you had Evan Mobley just completely disappear from the market,
I also, we haven't gotten to the part of the season where he misses a month, so there's still that.
I just think this team, the way that they're built, to be a great defense, they're so dependent on maximum exertion from LeBron James and Anthony Davis. And I just think where those guys are at physically, where this team is at, you're just not going to get that. Whereas with the Wolves, they just have so much size, and Gobert is so locked in every night on defense. And the way that team is built, like the Lakers, to be a great defense, they need Anthony Davis playing like he was in the playoffs. And he's not going to get that night to night in the regular season. It's just not realistic. So even if I have Davis second favorite, I don't think he's particularly close to Gobert. I still think probably the biggest edge bet in the market right now is betting Gobert at -110 for Defensive Player of the Year. If you think that, as we're recording, I believe he's played all 26 Minnesota games. And so you need 39 out of 56 games from Rudy Gobert to qualify for this award. And that team is 20-6 as we're recording, and they're just so locked into having a good team vibe, which is important for this award. And so I think if Gobert has a top 2 defense and a top 3 seed, I think he's just going to walk it in with health.
No, they have a top 1 defense right now with the Bullets.
Yeah,
it's not even close.
Yeah, and they project as being the best the rest of the way, and they've got a pretty decent lead banked in. And the thing is with this too is that if you ask anyone who follows the NBA who has the best defense, it's Minnesota. And even if like flukily OKC or Houston take over by a little bit, everyone's still going to think Minnesota has the best defense. And Gobert, the other thing with this is that it's funny that I think because Gobert was so bad last year relative to expectation and everyone took their shots at him, that is going to contribute to why he wins this season. Because now there's a narrative, there's an arc, there's a story, and he's also just the most deserving candidate as well.
He needed the palate cleanse. I love it. I love it. Let's go, Rudy.
So much story. Now that he is a feel-good player, and there was no way that he was going to get to that, I think, without last season. So, look, it's not, I don't think it's like -500 or anything that he wins, but I do think it's -200. So I think that he is the best bet on the board, and he will very likely win. All right, Sixers Heat. Heat are 1.5 point favorites over the 76ers. Total is 218.5. Don't get this one, Drew. Why aren't the Sixers favored here?
I guess the Heat are wearing their Heat culture jerseys or something. Honestly, the Heat even an average NBA team? My numbers would put them like
I think they're an average team.
I mean, maybe it's just because there's so many games in the sample where they've been like well under full strength that on the balance of the season, you sum it all up and it's like they're like 18th, 19th, depending on what metrics you want to use. And at full strength, maybe they're like 12th, but the Sixers are pretty clearly a top 5 offense, top 5 defense. I don't really know how this, that's a unit that doesn't travel. There's no wacko rest advantage here. Both Philly and Miami are coming into this one fresh. So a little bit of extra rest for both of those teams. So you should have 2 full strength squads, and I would imagine that even if this is a competitive game late into the later stages, I don't really know what the Heat do to defend Embiid at all. Like every time I feel like I've watched these teams play, that has felt like a mismatch in favor of Philadelphia, even in the games Miami scratched out wins. So it's not. I don't think this is like a runaway type of price that we'll never see again, but I would be shocked if this is what we see close. And I would guess that the betting market is going to be pretty hot on the Sixers if you're going to give them this type of respect.
Yeah. And again, it's early. It's a fairly soft market at this point. I would be, pretty surprised if this is the closing line. I do think the Heat, when they are fully healthy, which they effectively are at the moment, I do think this is an above average team. When Jimmy and Bam have shared the floor, they're above a +5 net rating, which again isn't amazing because it's your 2 best players by margin, but that is fine enough. Jimmy on, Bam off, +6.64 net rating in 452 minutes. I think this is a solid team. I think that Jaquez being as good as he has been has really helped. I think Hero back helps for a team that needs his creation, certainly in the regular season. And Lowry has been fine. I think this is a solid team. I think this is, with all the injuries to the Knicks and the Cavs, I think this is the favorite for the 4 seed, even if they're not super inspiring. I think this is the 4th best team in the East, but I don't think they should be favored over the 76ers. All right, before we get to our last game, find another way to celebrate the holiday season by being a part of the Premier League festive fixtures beginning on Thursday, December 21st. With 29 matches over 13 days on NBC, USA, and Peacock. So check out all the thrilling moments from creative set pieces, the scorching shots, and amazing saves. It's the gift that keeps on giving. All right, Mavs at Suns. Suns 5-point favorites. The total is 225.5. Kyrie Irving hasn't played since December 8th. Unsure of his status here. Derek Lively has been out. Bradley Beal is expected to miss multiple weeks. So unsure precisely what the personnel are going to be in this one. But what do you make of these two teams in this game?
Nothing I like more than capping off my Christmas day with a little bad blood between Devin Booker and Luka Doncic. Yeah, if you did not know those guys, there's no love lost between those players. And this is the biggest rest disadvantage of the Christmas slate. Phoenix is coming in with the most amount of rest as you get this time of year by a lot. They're going to be fully fresh, maybe even rusty. Who knows? Meanwhile, Dallas comes in with a little bit of a tough schedule on the way in. And as you've mentioned, they've been down bodies, which means that everybody's been playing more. And I think the fatigue in general has the Mavericks drawing dead in this one. It is going to be a weird market because these international markets, like on Christmas Day, it's like I always see funny stuff with these second half lines because who the heck knows who's manning the desk at these books. So excited to see if this is like a surprisingly competitive game early, if the Mavs have a lead at halftime or if they're like within a bucket at halftime. Like I think Suns second half is the angle of attack here as the Mavs fade away. And in general, this is a totally different team than the Suns team that, got embarrassed in game 7 against this Mavericks squad. And I don't think there's really any kind of lingering impacts there. And I think Kevin Durant, Devin Booker are good enough and mismatches, large enough mismatches to help elevate the Suns here. And I think there's we're starting to see some pretty obvious tape on exactly what you want to do when Luka Doncic is on the floor to have most offensive success against the Mavericks. So some of that might just be personnel related and how lean they are in terms of bodies right now. But there is a pretty clear trend in terms of how offenses are attacking the Mavericks, and I would expect that the Suns are all over that here. So Suns would be the side for me at 5, and I'm kind of selfishly hoping that it's a competitive game at halftime and we get an even better entry on Suns at second half.
Yeah, indeed. Just as a little inside baseball, so someone who worked at a book for a long time can tell you that Christmas Day, New Year's Day is an absolute skeleton crew. There is no one around. Everyone, you try and so obviously you want your traders to be able to, celebrate Christmas in particular with their families. So you just try and get as few people as humanly possible rostered on so that you can just kind of get through the day. So certainly it's perhaps not as solid an operation as trading floors typically are. I agree with your breakdown. I think some interesting future stuff with these teams. I think we're kind of reaching the point with the Suns where it's not quite alarm time, but I mean, if they have another injury that rules out a guy for 3-4 weeks, then all of a sudden you're going to get to the end of the season and it's like, all right, well, Beal, Durant, and Booker, they're about to go on this gauntlet of the Western Conference and they've played like 25 games together. It's not ideal. I don't really see a reason why the Suns should be favored over the Clippers to win the West at this point. I would have those teams neck and neck. Other future stuff, the most heavily favored player or shortest player in his respective award is Tim Hardaway Jr. to win Sixth Man of the Year. I don't really enjoy because I'm not really invested in Tim Hardaway Jr. in this market, but I enjoy his place in the market in a way because he's like the perfect baseline where if I'm evaluating a Sixth Man of the Year candidate, I can just be like, all right, well, I know exactly what Tim Hardaway Jr. is and what he's going to do. He's going to be 17 points per game on league average true shooting, decent 3-point shooting, not very good field goal percentage. He is going to average nothing in terms of supporting stats, and he's going to be on a team that wins 45 games. That's exactly what he's going to be, or like thereabouts. And so when I'm looking at cases for other guys, it's like, can he clear the Hardaway line? Does he beat Tim Hardaway? If he doesn't, then no interest whatsoever, unless the price is so extreme. But look, he can win by default if everyone else falls over, but I think it's very unlikely that everyone falls over. And I think it's much more likely that someone will leap over him. I think if Austin Reeves just hits his median outcome, which is 15-5-5 on solid efficiency on a Lakers team that wins 46 games, I think that would beat Hardaway fairly handily. And I think there are some other guys who have the ceiling to beat him as well.
Okay.
But that's my read on that one. What do you think?
I love that. That's fantastic breakdown. I agree with you. I think the Suns Clippers is a fun conversation because, like, on paper, when they made the move for Harden, I was like, okay, all right, we know who the second best team in the West is now. It's the Clippers. Yeah. And then they proceeded to do nothing to reinforce my opinion for 7-8 games. Like, there was a long stretch there. I was like, wow, I guess I was just dead wrong about what this team was. But of late, the numbers they're putting up are kind of much closer to what I was expecting in terms of, production and efficiency. And, I think they have the redundancy and, they just need a little bit of injury luck. And I do think they're your second best team, certainly over the Suns. Concerns about the Suns finding some continuity in their starting lineup, closing five before we get to the end of the season is definitely real. But even more than that is like every team that had depth issues swung on like 5 or 6 guys to see if they could hit a single. And I guess they hit a single with Yusuf Nurkic, and every other one was a swinging strike. And so
Eric Gordon's probably been
okay. I'll give you Eric Gordon. He's ended up being very important because he's playing a very Bradley Beal light role for them. But yeah, I think the overall strength of that roster and having not really hitting really with any of the other kind of swings there was a little rough. And I think it's not going to be easy for them to get through the West with the way they're going to be seated at this point.
Yep. No, I agree. And you say that the Clippers are the second best team. Not convinced they're not the first best team.
Okay.
Convinced. Yeah. Okay. Plus 17 games, they got a plus 9.3 net rating. They've got some shooting luck with that. I think they're shooting 38% from three in that time, and opponents are like 34%. But I don't know. I think this team has a pretty high ceiling. And the Nuggets weren't. I mean, look, I think the Nuggets are probably better than the Clippers, but I would not be shocked if the Clippers win that series. Should it come to pass? Anyway, we'll talk about that as the season goes on. All right, don't forget to check out NBC Sports for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks, everyone, watching us on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. If you're listening to us as a podcast, don't forget to rate and subscribe. And a reminder to find all your favorite NBC Sports shows on Amazon Music. Just head to amazon.com/NBC Sports. From Jay Croucher and Drew Dinsick, we'll speak to you soon.